Yeah, we've done some data planting work for the last 3 years. This year we've kind of continued doing that, but boiled it down a little bit, done a little less of that, and doing some more high input type of soybean trials. So basically higher soybean yields and what more can be done. If you have your have handouts, some of you don't have them, well, I'll just try to describe things the best I can here. Within those inputs that are being added, seed treatment, well, that one's pretty standard. Cobra herbicide at V4. You can see last week we put some of that on some of these plots. If you look around, you can kind of see it. It's one's the silver flag. We'll drive by a few of them when you get out of here. They're pretty much come out of it already. We'll just put it that way. Nitrogen fertilizer, some people think there might be something there. Foliar fertilizer, antioxidant, and a fungicide. And the way this is set up, if you look at that table there on the left middle there, you can see that for each treatment it excludes just one of those products. So it gets 5 out of the 6 products every treatment. That's an omission type study, they call it. So I described our sites at Beersford. We're doing all these stuff to beans planted on May 14th and June 2nd to see if there's a response. Maybe it's only at an earlier planting date or later or whatever. At Aurora, we're using this under irrigation, doing this under irrigated and non-irrigated conditions. And at South Shore, same here as Beersford, we have a May 10th and June 7th planting date, a earlier and a later. So seed treatments, we've done some stuff with them already here at Southeast Farm. Didn't really find any yield increases to them, just based on 2 years, and last year is kind of a wash for anything. There's not really much useful data came out of last year, just with the severe drought. The Cobra, like I had mentioned earlier, the Cobra or Blazer and that diphenyl ether herbicide families, basically it's to shorten the plants and promote more branching. Branching in soybeans is not that well understood from what I've read, and they're just trying to figure out what's going on there with why additional branching may contribute to yield. Nitrogen fertilizer, typically further south in environments that can yield over 80 bushel per acre, there's been responses. Basically, the rhizobia can't keep up when it gets that high of a yield environment. Probably not going to happen here, but yeah, just threw it in to see if there's a response. Foliar fertilizer, that's hopefully going to go on some of these when I'm done talking tonight and the wind dies down maybe. So antioxidant, basically it's to suppress production of excessive ethylene, which ethylene could lead to more tolerance to drought stress. And fungicide's the final component, foliar fungicide with 2 modes of action. One of those modes being the strobilurin mode of action, which is also shown to increase plant health in some cases. I mean, it's results that throughout the nation haven't always shown that. So, but unfortunately, people are applying these strobilurin fungicides to increase plant health. We've also created a resistant frog eye leaf spot down in the southern U.S. by overusing these fungicides. So if you flip your page over, on the back side, I was just gonna summarize these soybean planting date studies we've done since 2010 down here. I'm not gonna really talk about 2012 just because there really wasn't, like I said, any relevant data that came out of that. So basically everything was planted in 30-inch rows here that I'm going to talk about. So in 2010, if you look at the upper right corner there, it shows, I'm just focusing on the 2.1 maturity group there. You can see there in 2010 there was a downward trend. We were able to get beans in really early that year, April 29th, and there was a downward trend but not a significant yield reduction, statistically significant, until the 24th of May. So really these earlier planting dates, which people further south and east of here were saying May 10th you could be losing soybean yield. Well, there's a little bit of a trend here at Beersford, but in 2010 was probably the closest we ever saw to getting a real yield response to earlier planting date. We set that confidence level at 95%, so maybe if it was dropped, that would be significant there, that April 29th planting date. But we if you keep going down to the left middle slide there, I have a, I broke them out into maturity groups. So really, the very early planting date, no difference between a group 2 and a 1 and a 0 there. No statistical difference. They all have the letter A beside them. So move over to the right. We have an early planting. I classify it as the first 10 days of May. Usually a group 1 or 2 would be okay there. I mean, 2 is going to be normally planted here. We added the 1.6 in 2011. So occasionally, if you look at these planting dates, you see the group 1 wasn't consistently at the top. So the 2.1 and the 1.6 were always the way to go, which, that's what's normally planted. So really, other than that, any questions?